What if the line between gods and humans was never as clear as we think? What if, instead of two separate categories, divine and human, there has always been something in between? Not fully God, not fully human, but something transitional. Throughout history, civilizations across the world have described beings that exist precisely in this space. Not ordinary humans, not distant abstract gods, but something closer, something that walks among us, yet does not fully belong here. In ancient Greece, these beings had names. Zeus, king of the gods, ruler of Olympus. Heracles, born of a god and a human woman, a demigod, half divine, half human. But, more importantly, a bridge. In ancient Egypt, the concept was different, but the pattern remained. Pharaohs were not merely rulers. They were considered manifestations of the divine, linked to gods like Ra or Horus, not symbolic leaders, but living connections between heaven and earth. In Mesopotamia, kings were often described as chosen by gods, or even partially divine themselves. Figures like Gilgamesh were said to be 2/3 god and 1/3 human. Again, not fully one thing, not fully the other. Different cultures, different languages, different symbols, but the same recurring idea that there exists a category of being between gods and humans. So we ask the obvious question, was this simply imagination, or was it an attempt to describe something real? Modern thinking tends to dismiss these ideas. We classify them as mythology, stories, cultural artifacts. But there is another way to look at it, not as fiction, but as encoded observation. Ancient people did not have microscopes, they did not have neuroscience, they did not have physics as we know it. But they had something else, direct experience, observation of patterns, and an ability to translate those patterns into symbolic systems. What if gods were not literal beings in the sky, but representations of forces? Not personalities, but principles. In modern science, we describe the universe in terms of forces: gravity, electromagnetism, quantum fields, invisible yet fundamental. Ancient cultures described something similar, but in human-like form. Gods of thunder, gods of the sun, gods of the sea. Why human-like? Because the human mind understands through analogy. So here is the first hypothesis. Gods are not beings, but personifications of universal forces. But that is only the beginning, because some figures in ancient history are different. They are not abstract. They are specific, named, described, sometimes even historically grounded. Take Horus, both a god and a symbol of kingship, or Gilgamesh, a ruler who may have existed, or figures like Krishna, both divine and human in narrative. These are not just forces. These are identities, stories of interaction between something greater and human life. So we move to a second hypothesis. The boundary between gods and humans represents different levels of consciousness. What if ancient people were not describing different species, but different states. In modern neuroscience, we know that consciousness is not fixed. It changes. States of awareness can shift through meditation, trauma, extreme environments, altered brain chemistry. People report experiences of unity, timelessness, expanded awareness, loss of individual identity. These experiences are real. They can be measured in brain activity, but they are not fully understood. Ancient traditions often described gods as beings of higher awareness, not limited, not bound by ordinary perception. So what if becoming divine was not about transformation into another being, but expansion of awareness? Now, consider historical figures. Throughout history, certain individuals have been perceived as more than human, not just leaders, but something else. Figures who changed the course of civilizations, whose influence extended far beyond their time. Why? Because they operated differently. They saw patterns others could not. They influenced minds, cultures, belief systems. From a modern perspective, we call them visionaries, geniuses, revolutionaries. But in ancient times, they were often seen as divine. This leads to a third hypothesis. Godlike humans are individuals operating at extreme levels of cognitive and psychological capacity. Not supernatural, but rare. Now connect this with mythology. Stories of gods interacting with humans may represent encounters with advanced individuals, symbolic descriptions of internal experiences, or a combination of both. But there is still something unresolved. Why do these patterns repeat across cultures? Why do civilizations separated by oceans describe similar structures? Gods above, humans below, and something in between. Coincidence? Or something deeper? Let's introduce a more radical idea. What if ancient humans were interacting with something that we no longer perceive? Not necessarily physical beings, but systems, fields, forms of intelligence not bound to biological structure. Modern science does not confirm this, but it does acknowledge something important. Reality is far more complex than we perceive. We see only a small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. We hear only a narrow range of frequencies. Our perception is limited. So what exists beyond those limits? We don't fully know. Ancient cultures may have interpreted unknown phenomena through mythological frameworks, but interpretation does not equal invention. It may mean translation. Now bring this back to the present. Do these ideas still influence us? Absolutely. Modern culture still reflects ancient structures. Superheroes, mythical narratives, stories of individuals with abilities beyond normal limits. These are modern versions of gods and demigods. Why do they resonate? Because the pattern is familiar, deeply embedded in human psychology. We are drawn to the idea of transcendence, of becoming more than we are. But perhaps the most important question is this: why does the boundary between gods and humans matter? Because it defines how we see ourselves. If humans are completely separate from anything greater, then existence is limited, closed. But if there is continuity, a spectrum, a gradient between human and something beyond, then the story changes. It becomes open, dynamic, not a fixed identity, but a process. So perhaps ancient civilizations were not simply telling stories about gods. Perhaps they were exploring a question: what is the full potential of a human being, and where does it lead? Between gods and humans, there may not be a boundary, only a transition, a spectrum of awareness, a scale of perception, a continuum of possibility, and perhaps we are somewhere in the middle.